Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, we've got a ×10 event this weekend, which hones in on the most important skill of the game. So every time they're doing these ×10, they're doing really tempting categories. For me, on my main account, it's literally irrelevant. And actually, even on my free-to-play account, I've got someone who does this role already. And you can get someone who does this role for free. But these champions are kind of considerably better than those. So this is going to be a ×10 for AOE drop defense. Probably the most important skill in the game to help you get through any dungeons, any Doom Tower stuff, any faction wars, but the wave content, not necessarily the bosses. It's more about defeating the waves that lead up to the bosses, or at least dramatically speeding up your progress. Yeah, once you've AOE drop defense, everything feels easier. Your nukers get the job done. So we've got, eight champions up for grabs. But before we get into that, they've also dropped this event. And I feel like, sorry, it's a tournament. I feel like this might just be a slap in everybody's face. So what have we got? Champion Chase Tournament. And if you read the little small print here, get champions by any means necessary to rack up points and win Gintori. Yeah, Gentoro's a legendary champion, which I'll go into in a second. And I bet you're all like reading that thinking, brilliant, another chance to get a legendary. We can all get a legendary. Now, sometimes they do this as like a 1 in 100. So if you win your tournament of 100 people, you get that champion. Which is cool, by the way. Like, a lot of people get frustrated with that, but 1 in 100 people get a new legendary champion. Yes, it's generally the whales that win, of course, because it's the whales that pull more shards. But 1 in 100 have got a chance to get themselves a Gintori. And that's not the case with this. This is one player in the game. So when you go into tournament mode, you know, you normally have your prizes here, and then you've got the global leaderboard. Some people probably don't even know this exists. Global leaderboard. It's going to be this person. The very top person in the whole game of shard pulling will get Gintori. So honestly, they may as well just not have said it because it incentivizes such a small group. Like, I consider myself now a whale. I would never ever consider going for one of these events. Like, I'm not even close to the Krakens, to the mega Krakens that live on the other side of the sea. So, Gintori, let's have a quick look at Gintori before we get into the ×10 champs. He is a Shadowkin. What's all the fuss going to be about? Honestly, he's good but very niche. Anyway, like, even if I was a Mega Kraken, I don't think I'd go for this one. So attacks one enemy, gets an extra turn if he kills someone, a bit like a Septimus or a Relic Keeper type of passive. So every time he kills someone A1, he goes again. It's a reasonable A1. A2 steals 100% target turn meter, a bit like we see with Geomancer. Decreases the cooldown of his A3, and in his A3s is kind of big ticket stuff. So single target, decrease defense, and weaken. And every time he attacks 5 times, he attacks 5 times every time he uses his steal for the 4th time against one target. So it's really just a clan boss mechanic. Or you might get a couple of these away against a Doom Tower boss. He's got a passive as well. All turn meter fill effects are increased by 50% on him, which is kind of fun. He's a fun champ. But is he worth like mega whaling on? No, I don't think so. So let's get into the ×10 then. Is anyone going to be tempted to pull shards? Honestly, we've got a fusion coming up who I think looks pretty trash. So there's not like must save shards for fusion feeling in me. Albeit there will be epics involved as well, which might be good. But honestly, ×10s generally is like, if you're desperate for champions, or if you're going to pull shards anyway, at least save it for a ×10 event. So first one up. It's not in that. First one up is in here. I don't have this guy, but he's pretty cool for this faction. So in fairness, like, when you're thinking decreased defense champions, do you have one for your faction already? That's a big question to ask. Like, there's not many in the game. There's a lot more than there was, but there's not many. There's generally 1 or 2 decent ones per faction. Gorlos is actually the best answer instead of legendaries for Demon Spawn. And even with legendaries, AoE drop defense, you've got like Sakia, who does it situationally. So he's probably the go-to. He's probably the go-to AoE drop defense for this faction, if you're thinking faction was. So what else has he got? Double hitter. Each hit fills his champion's turn meter. It's kind of nice if they're under burns and stuff. AoE drop defense. 3-turn cooldown if you book it. Needs to be booked to get to your 100%. But it's a good skill. 3-turn cooldown on AoE drop defense is a good skill. We're going to say that with all of these champs, though. And then we've got a single hitter here. Can be a 4-turn cooldown. 100% HP burn. And decreased accuracy for 3 turns. Fills his turn meter if it's a crit. His kit's nice. Ally attack in Doom Tower is okay. But this is nice for like boss fights. This is nice for wave content. And this is nice as well. So definitely would be a solid champion to level. He's Spirit Affinity, which means that I think for a lot of content, he becomes the negative affinity. There seems to just be a lot more content aimed at magic affinity. But it's good to have, you know, that alternative. So good champion. Now, Aboro is the next one. I like this champion less. So she does have an AoE drop defense, but is situational. So on her A1, attacks one enemy, can place decreased defense. Will attack all enemies instead if they're under 4 or more debuffs. So you need one target to have 4 debuffs on them. If they are, then this becomes an AoE drop defense. And at that point, it's a good skill. But 4 debuffs is quite a lot to rack up before she goes. It's also got a really weak defense, but the rest of her stats are okay. Double hitter here on her A2. Books to 100% chance of transferring all debuffs from herself to a target. So I guess if she had a bunch of debuffs on her, you could throw them onto someone else, gives them the 4 debuffs, and then she A1s is an option. The first hit has got, again, 100% if booked, chance of stealing all buffs from a target. That's nice as well. So if they got block debuffs on them, for example, you steal that buff away before she then transfers all the debuffs, I think. A3, increased crit rate and crit damage on herself. Very selfish champion. Spread it around, Aboro. You're a void. Epic. Spread this to everyone, please. Places perfect val on herself if it's a crit. And then a passive. Revive on death on this champion for 3 turns whenever they get a veil. Her kit's very selfish, but it's not bad. Ally attack in dungeons is okay. She's decent, but I wouldn't pull Void Shards for Aboro myself. Okay, next one up. Where does he live? Ogden Tribes. Siege Holt. So I didn't get this guy. He was part of the fusion recently for Herndig. Good champion. Good, solid champion. Doesn't even fit on the screen. He's so massive. So what we got here then, he hits hard, this guy. So A1 decreases turn meter by 15% if they're under decreased defense or decreased speed. It's okay. A2 is where his big drop defense comes in. So this hits hard. Also gives him an attack buff. 100% if booked. 3-turn cooldown if booked. Good champion. And then we've got places crit rate and crit damage on himself. Then attacks. This is a one-shot nuker. So all of his kit hits hard. He's got the AoE drop defense. Good, solid champion to level out. And also, if you're thinking of Ogden Tribes, no drop defense on the Legendaries. We've got Udo here now. I think that's it. And there's nothing down here. So you've got Bellower as like a weak source version. So yeah, if you get him, there's a good chance you're going to be building him out unless you've already built Udo out for your drop defense for that faction. Moving on, we've got the Dwarf. Again, someone else I don't have. A lot of these are new champions. Fodbor the Bard. There was a point where I think I had all epics. Shows how quickly they're releasing champions since that, because now I've got a load of gaps. His axe doesn't really look like an axe, does it? Oh, give it a swing. It's got a blade on it, I guess. Yeah, look, so Fodbar the Bard. He's got his musical instruments in the back. Cool kind of feeling of a champion, I think. Pretty cool. What we got here, heal reduction A1, triple hit. This is nice for finite, by the way. Stun ability on his A2. So books to 100% chance of stealing 2 buffs, then stuns if they've got no buffs. 3-turn cooldown, it's okay. And then we've got the AoE drop defense, 4-turn cooldown. Honestly, in today's world, 4-turn cooldown's not great. Like, there's plenty of 3-turn cooldown drop defenses now. There didn't used to be, but there are now. So This guy, good for the Dwarf faction because they don't have another alternative. Oh, actually, they do now because they've got Herndig if you've got him. So if you don't have him, then, you know, as an epic, he becomes a good faction war champion. But outside of that, I think there's just a lot of others that do the job better. So again, like, I wouldn't be pulling for him specifically. Okay, let's get on to the legendaries. So we've got ourselves a Ray. Cool champion. Very underrated, I'd say. Underrated, awesome legendary champion. One of the top damage dealers in the game if you build her for damage. Yeah, Hooray 2 inflicts 50% more damage against targets under any sort of debuff. So you actually want someone else to drop defense before she goes, and then she slam dunks them. Also, with Book, she gets another, 30% more damage. So 50% and a 30%. All of these, just literally, whatever you would have hit for, times it by 1.5. Then that number, if you book it, times it by 1.3. And these multipliers scaling up actually make it ridiculous. So, yeah, these do a massive amount of work. If these aren't in play, then actually she's quite a regular hitter. But when these get going, she's a nuke. Good base stats across the board. Actually got a really solid base defense for an attack-based champion. She's also got an amazing A3 as well. So if you're in trouble, she AoEs the wave. She removes all of their buffs and replaces it with a freeze, like 70% chance if booked. It's on a long cooldown. It does hit hard. It's on a long cooldown. This is like an arena whammy to absolutely like... It's like Ninja, but and some in terms of his A3. Yeah, similar type of idea. And then her AoE drop defense comes on her A1. 50% chance to land it if booked. Honestly, it's like the secondary thing about her kit. You don't even think about it so much compared to all of the other goodness that's going on. She does have a speed aura in dungeons, which is cool. She's a great champ. Great champion to get. Right, next legendary in the mix is Genzin. I think I did a guide on this guy quite recently. Fast, good attack, good HP. He's got a triple hit A1, again, good for Fire Knight. Bit of turn meter fill. AoE, drop defense, free turn cooldown, 100% if booked. Each crit fills his own turn meter by 10%. So if you build him with 100% crit, then you've got turn meter fill on an A1, you've got turn meter fill on an A2, and this can be like hitting four enemies. So you're getting like 40% of your turn meter back straight away in the arena. Or if you're against Spider, it's like 100% of your turn meter back. So you just go again, which is nuts. And he's also got an A3, free turn cooldown if booked, attacks one enemy, ignores unkillable and shield, builds his turn meter again, builds it by more if they've got low health, and decreases the cooldown of this ability, yeah, by one turn if he kills someone. It actually reduces the cooldown of his A2 and his A3. So, yeah, I mean, he's a sort of champion that if you do him like campaign farming, he's just constantly doing his AoEs because he's got nuts speed capability. And then he gets more speed and resistance if there are fewer champions on this team than the enemy team. So, again, like campaign farmer, when your food dies, he's just literally like throwing his speed up even higher. Fun champion. He's not super, like, he's not crazy useful, but he's fun. So Genzin, not a bad one to get. Last two are Void legendaries then. So we've got a Skinwalker. Pretty insane for this faction. Like, this is the hard carry of the faction. Coronar. Yeah. If you manage to... Like, faction wars is hard with Skinwalkers. There's really very few champions that are up for grabs in the epics. There's actually some good rares, but very few epics. You kind of need Fleshmonger for your AoE drop defense for this faction, because there's not much going on in the epics. But then if you get Coronar, you're sailed through. So Coronar, lots going on in his kit. AoE, chance to drop enemy turn meter. It attacks a couple of times if Mania's around. A2, he's got a AoE provoke. If you book it, it's 100%. That's nice. Control. Places block debuffs and increased defense on himself. And then again, he does more stuff if Mania's around. And then A3, AoE again. So 3 AoE abilities here. Places decreased attack on all enemies. Places decreased defense on all enemies that have already got decreased attack. So good ability. 4-turn cooldown's not the best, as we've seen. There's a load of 3-turn cooldown type of abilities as good as this. And then a passive, if Minai's around, he does more stuff. Another passive, like, what else can this guy do? Places increased defense on all allies for 2 turns if he kills someone. Now, he's not the hardest hitter in the game. Like, he's a mediocre hitter. So this passive doesn't kick in as often as you'd like it to, but it's not bad. But yeah, absolute carry, like, great champion to get. I personally wouldn't go out of my way to... I don't have him, and I wouldn't go out of my way to pull void shards for him, personally. The last one, though, is one of the better champions in the game. A lot of people have argued in the past she's the best. She's up there. She's up there. Like, her kit is nuts. Great speed. One of the best speeds in the game. High health. Bit low defense to be, like, real top tier. And a bit low attack. But she can do some work. She's got a poison A1. So that's nice for clan boss, dragon fights, boss fights generally. AOE drop defense and weaken. This is why she's so good. 100% if booked. 3-turn cooldown even if not booked. Which is rare to see. She drops defense and weaken. And because she's void, she doesn't have that weak affinity. So she's got the 3% chance that it won't land. But as long as you build accuracy, basically it's going on. She's also got an AOE HP burn. And HP burn's been becoming more and more important as the game's grown. Especially with Doom Tower, where HP burn's actually one of your best sources of damage. Level 21 to 25 dungeons, where things like enemy max HP abilities are nerfed into the ground. HP burn becomes your best source of damage for a lot of that content. So she can come in and do a ton of work there. Also, high waves in Doom Tower where you just have to grind down their HP. HP burn AOE is also one of your best sources of damage. So this is actually a massive ability. She's got an extra Brucey bonus if Cupidus is on the team. It's okay. It's not crazy, but her and Cupidus together are a fun combo. And then she's got HP in all battles on the aura. So she kind of is worth pulling shards for. Like, in the past, I would have said yes. Pull your void shards if you want a bit of Venus. She has got a punch to help you through. But I don't know, guys. These times 10, like, with the times 2 events coming with all of these other special bits and bobs at the minute, I don't know if we've got a bit of fatigue over shard events, honestly. I won't be pulling shards this weekend for any of these champions, but I don't need them. On my free-to-play, if I didn't have Deacon already, I guess I would already have had War Maiden, because you can farm her. Yeah, you can farm yourself an AoE drop defense champion from here. Any level, brutal, hard, normal, whatever, and I'd encourage new players to do this, because War Maiden's got this AoE drop defense on her A3, and you can farm her over and over again, which means that you're basically getting free books whilst you're grinding experience for your champs. And she's got this on a 3-turn cooldown as well. Yeah, so honestly, these champions are not a necessity to pull for. But if you don't have one yet and you're going to pull shards anyway, then probably pull during that times 10 and try and get yourself one. So look, what do you think about the Gintori event? And will you be pulling shards this weekend? I've been Hell Hades. I will see you later.